Shalom, shalom. This week's parsha is Bechukotai. And in the very beginning, the first pasuk, it says, Im Bechukotai telechu ve'et matzotai tishmaru asitam otam. It says, if you will follow my decrees, observe my commandments, and perform them. And then it goes on to tell us all of the myriad of blessings that God will bestow upon us. And I'd like to take a minute to really focus on this for a minute and the importance and the value of this in terms of having a good life. What people don't seem to understand is that God is not telling us to do his things so he can have a whole bunch of puppets following his way for some sort of ego boost. Look at all these people I created doing my will. Yay. God created us and he wants us to have a good life. And he gave us the laws and the commandments so that we can do this. Now, if we follow them or we don't follow them, do you think it makes one iota of a difference in God's existence as God? It does not. It only hurts ourselves. And there's a greater extent to which this touches our lives than we think. We think about this, and God says, Bechukotai tilechu. If you walk in my chukot, our commandments that we don't really necessarily understand, we can't understand them. And it's not just talking about shatnez, wearing wool and linen together, in my estimation. It's not just talking about those that don't make logical sense, like the red heifer, or not wearing wool and linen together, or things like that. I think what God is trying to say is that if you walk in my ways, if you perform the commandments, even when they make absolutely no sense to you, and they're like a chok to you, and if you guard and keep my mitzvos and asitam otam, and if you do them, even when you don't want to, even when you don't understand to, even when they seem like, what is the point, what is the purpose, but we go out of our way. Why? Because we submit ourselves to the will of God, to a will of something that if we believe in God, we believe he gave us a Torah, we believe this is the right thing, then even when we don't want to, when we don't feel like it, when it makes no sense to us, we know that God is the only one who knows what that is, and we subject our will to the will of God, of what he believes, of what he knows is the best for us. Now, why is this so important? Why is it so important in life? Why does this yield so much blessing, aside from the fact that God promised, that we will get the blessing if we do this? I believe very strongly that if you take people, I'm not saying that you can't have a person like this if they do not necessarily do all these things, but you are way more likely to have a person who subjects themselves to the will of God and says, you know what, sometimes I don't like it, but I'm going to do something because there's something bigger here. There's something sometimes more important than what I feel like, what I want to do at the moment. And a person who learns to do that in their life and everyday life, because when you're a religious person, like I am, there are things that you do every day that are difficult, that you don't necessarily want to do. Not every day is it so easy to pray. It's not always so easy to, have respect for your appearance or do certain things. But when you remember that God said that you have to do it, it puts a heavier weight, and we do it whether we think we should or we shouldn't, because that's what God said. And when we do these things and we train ourselves to be this way, I think it makes for a better spouse, because that person learns that in order to make something bigger work, sometimes you have to do things that you don't necessarily want for the betterment of the whatever it is, the relationship, the business, the working environment, the neighborhood, whatever it might be. But people who never learn to subject themselves, to submit themselves to something else, who only do what they want to do, whether because it has to make sense to me or I won't do it, or if I have to feel like it or I won't do it, it's a recipe for disaster in all sorts of things in lives, in their relationships, in their businesses, and everything. So I think that when we learn to be this way, and especially, obviously, the highest level is with God, because God knows what's best for us, and if we do the things that He commands us to do, then hopefully, if we do them the right way, it would just be a natural outcome, and we'll have a good life. But in addition, it's a training for our whole being on how to relate well with others, how to compromise, how to live in harmony. And when you live in harmony with other people, this is the biggest blessing. This is the blessing that you can get of shalom. There is no bigger blessing, I don't believe, than having peace while you live. So that is my lesson for today. And I hope you all agree, because I feel very strongly about it. And with that, I wish you a Shabbat Shalom.